Welcome to On Farm. It's Anna here with you again this week. A bit of a warning on this one, actually, I think. Put your emotional riding hats and body protectors on, because this one had producer Dave and I in tears, actually. Incredibly moving, but actually incredibly inspiring and positive. So don't let that need for tissues put you off, but maybe just grab some anyway and sit back, relax and enjoy.
So hi, my name's Danielle McKinnon and I'm the founder of Eat Sleep Rides. We are a social enterprise based in East Berwickshire, Lamberton, which is also known as the land that time forgot. So we're the last town before you come to the Welcome to Scotland, Welcome to England sign.
Oh, yes.
So just over the border. And actually, historically, it used to be the old Gretna Green. So it was cheaper to come over the border to get married in Lamberton than it was to go up to Gretna.
Yes.
Well, so that's our claim to fame.
Wow. So, tell us a bit about your life story and how it led you to running the social enterprise that you're currently running to start off with.
So my story started from lived experience. So I was brought up in foster care. I was in homeless hostels by the age of 15. I was expelled from school by the age of 13. So I have ADD. I had quite a tricky life from the age of 14, probably to 21. When I first got sent to horses, I was 14 and I wasn't allowed in school. And I'll always remember that first year. I remember getting my first wage packet. I used to get £80 a week in my brown paper envelope at the stables. And it taught me to get up every day, I suppose. So every day I had to get up for something. You know, I had to build resilience no matter what the weather was. I had to build this emotional intelligence with an animal that didn't have any bias. And through...
So, sorry to interrupt you, but somebody at some point thought horses are going to help this girl.
Yep.
Who was that? Did you have that realization yourself, or was that somebody that you were working with, or somebody who was working with you that thought, I think that horses are the key to this? How did that happen?
So that was, I think, by school number 3. So it was a school called St. Josephine's. So that was sort of an outreach school in Trinent in East Lothian.
Okay, yeah.
And they decided to send us all on an outdoor pursuits course.
Right.
And that's when horses first came into my life. So
yeah, when you were early teens.
Yeah, 13 probably
13.
was the earliest it started. So I never rode as a child.
No.
And I made my money, or I made my way in the industry by being brave. So I used to ride all the horses that no one wanted to ride. I would put myself out there because no one really wants to care for a child on their horse. So that was really difficult for me when I was younger, trying to make my money in horses, because especially where I've got to now, there's no funding when you're trying to move your way up the ladder and no one's going to give you a horse.
No.
So that moved on to then I got a job when I was sent to this riding stables in Edinburgh, and I was given a job from them, and I kind of worked my way up to assistant manager.
And that was your original £8 a week pay packet. Yes. Yeah.
And then I worked my way up to assistant manager by the age of 17.
Wow.
But by that point, I was living in a hostel. And I'll always remember I was the only person that worked in the hostel. So I'd come home with my pay packet and I'd have to pay to live there. And I wouldn't get any free foods because I had wages.
Yes.
So I'd come back and everyone had been at the cinema. They'd all have had their dinner bought for them. And I'd have to give over, my £85 a week, I'd have to give over 55 to stay in this homeless hostel in Edinburgh. And I got my free bus pass. Yeah. And then from that, I went and worked for a show jumper named Douglas Duffin.
I've heard of him.
So he was an international show jumper, so I travelled up and down Britain with him in the back of a horse lorry. And then I continued to go through my exams, and then I went to Inner Mongolia when I was in my 20s.
Wow, I didn't see that one.
I wasn't expecting that, no.
So I rode a horse across Inner Mongolia, so I was really obsessed with the Genghis Khan Trail when I was younger. I used to love to read. So I went and rode the old Genghis Khan Trail, which is still a province, it's still Inner Mongolia, still a province of China.
I think I've seen a documentary about the horses. Yeah. Yes.
So I lived with nomads for a month, and then I stayed on in Beijing for a little bit, and then I did a skydive when I came back. Raised quite a little bit of money for charities. This was all for breast cancer and the British Horse Society. So I ran my own techno club night in Edinburgh as well. And then started face painting at festivals. So I'd kind of been in this life of moving around. So when I was living in England, I'd done a couple of jobs. I'd also worked in the New Forest as a riding groom. I'd come back up to Scotland, and then when I came back from Mongolia, I decided, right, I want to get my stage 4, which is my British Horse Society accredited professional qualification. Challenge with getting your stage 4 is you have to be jumping horses in year 20. Challenge with me was I'd never been given a horse, so I was having to make my way through working, riding. So I moved down south, so I worked for a lady named Claire Lilly, who writes dressage books, and then I started working for a massive dealing yard for a guy named Shane Walsh. And then in between that time, I did some event riding for Marcelo Tossi. So he was part of the Brazilian Olympic team.
You got it.
So I used to ride out their horses.
Hard work.
And then used to ride out other event horses. So Coral Keen, I used to ride on Little Chevrils, Wooten Bassett. So I had a really good career for 5 years, but I was still an apprentice. And in those 5 years, I got my stage 4. But what I saw, hard work. And working for the Beaufort. So I had, but in that time, you know, I saw really, we think of poverty in Scotland.
Literally side by side.
I mean, I would go and work for people who had helicopters in their back garden. But then I was living in a flat because I wasn't being paid enough with a guy who'd been on Jeremy Kyle who didn't know if his kid was his. So I really saw the difference in poverty when I was in Wiltshire.
Literally side by side.
Literally. That I'd never ever seen before. So then I came home with a mission to break that gap. Because I recognise in the industry, so when we look at horses, what we see a lot of is girls jumping horses over jumps, wearing nice white jodhpurs, all these beautiful horses. But the reality is, when you look at the latest beta survey, we bring in like 3.5 billion into the economy. And this is the people that make the feed, the wheelbarrows, you know, build the saddles, make the clothing. So we forget about everyone else that's part of the industry because we just push towards riding. So then I set up a freelance business. So it was a rehabilitation business for horses. So I worked with a lady named Sue Dyson. So she discovered pain ethograms in horses. So she was one of the leading vets in pain ethograms. So I was looking at facial behaviours in horses' movements, so for us to detect pain. So I did a course with her, and then I came home. I set up a freelance breaking business. So I was starting young horses. I got a van, got my first loan from the Prince's Trust. So that was my little 2,000
roughly
pounds.
what age were you at this point?
At that point, it was now 27.
Okay. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you how old you are now.
No,
but just so that we can understand the timeline. No. Yes. Yeah, 27. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's other things that had happened, but we'll not go into that today because I've had quite a colourful life. But yeah, so I came back, set up, got my van, started going around. So I did that for 3 years. And then I realised I actually wanted to bring horses to underprivileged people. So I wanted to have a better outreach. So I set up Eat, Sleep, Ride in 2017.
Yeah.
So the original aim was to make horse riding accessible to rural communities. So it was to low-income families that couldn't
afford it otherwise.
And to bring the joy that it brought me. And I started with a loan from First Sport. So I went into barn. I had one pony, so 7 years ago, that I bought for £50. And now we have 17, soon to be 21 next week, horses and ponies, and we run our own site. So as we sort of took on this site, I literally had this one little rented barn. I recognised that people were coming to me not because they wanted to ride a horse. They were coming because they wanted to feel safe. So they were coming because they wanted to socialise. They wanted to do something in nature where they weren't judged. Exactly how I felt when I was that age. So I started to recognise a lot of these young people that are coming through my door were coming with challenges in neurodiversity, low-income families, survivors of sexual abuse, drug and alcohol addiction, criminal justice system, and they were pouring in to the point the capacity that I was reaching was not manageable.
Demand, yeah.
So I went on to build it through First Sport and got my first year salary paid. Right. And we started to do a lot of work with the community payback teams. We were the last Leader funded project in the Scottish borders. Yeah. Until Leader stopped, that was kind of tricky. Grant, but that helped me. It got me an arena. I got a quad bike. I got someone to help me project manage. I managed to write a business plan, so I pushed on and on and on. And in that year, 2 years on, I won Scottish Edge Social Entrepreneur of the Year. So I was one of the first winners of the Social Entrepreneur category. But I just graduated from the School of Social Entrepreneurs in that time and just won the Big Issue Invest programme to get my first capital loan. So within 2 years of being at where I was now, I realised I couldn't really do what I wanted to do, mainly because the farm was rented out to different businesses.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There was a lot of agriculture going on. There was contractors, there was joinery. So I couldn't actually build what I wanted to do. I couldn't build on the groups I was working with. I only hired certain spaces of the farm. So we then actually took on a landfill site 4 years ago. And then COVID hit a week later.
Yeah.
So it was really tricky trying to manage a rural business in that time because one, I didn't get any capital allowances because I was running 2 sites. And because that one wasn't open, I couldn't get any gains or capital gains from that site. So my tax bill was huge. Second, there was no furlough support for anyone. So animals didn't come into the COVID furlough scheme. So we were still working every day, and we were actually increasing capacity because we had the support of the community. People were phoning community groups first, you know, when they couldn't get their food or their medicine or they were isolated. So over that time in COVID, I think I must have given out about 700 qualifications because I was doing online calls every day with different age groups and adults. I was doing horse health courses, riding stable management courses, Rosetta Awards for children, and then I inducted 45 volunteers. So I would let people come every day on a 2-hour rota system with their parents. So I had to not also just induct all the young people, I had to induct all the mums and the dads.
Totally constrained by the COVID.
Completely constrained.
Yeah.
And then we did a quiz night. So we're doing a quiz night every 3 weeks as well. So
Online?
Online,
Yes,
every 3 weeks, everyone would pay a £5. And we would do mad things that I would dress up every 3 weeks on a Friday night, and I would do quizzes for the local community.
I'm exhausted just listening to this
Do you
journey.
never have time to sleep? That's one of my questions.
I don't think you
Gosh,
sleep anyway when you've got ADHD, do you?
Well, I was going to say, you referenced having ADHD a couple of times, and I guess that's something to manage and cope with. But I'm left wondering, is that where you've got all this, you've done all this stuff, you've just got this, I mean, I would call that an immense amount of drive as much as I would call it ADHD. Like, what did the D stand for? Disorder. It sounds like it's driven you through and it's a superpower.
I think in some sense
It is a superpower. That's sort of how a lot of people refer to it, don't they? Yeah.
I
I mean, it
think
can be
so.
debilitating as well. I'm not trying to make light of it.
No. And I think like before, I think now as an adult, and I'll just be really honest with you, like I've been back to the last year, I've been back to the doctor. So the last 3 years have been really difficult with building the farm. So we had to remove 3.5 Arctic tons worth of rubbish. We couldn't get an electricity source. We had to build the site by hand, and that was through 90 volunteers and 2,300 hours of volunteering to physically build. So that was from putting in a road to putting in a barn, to putting in an office, to putting in an arena. And everything we did was recycled. So we were getting steel containers, we were cladding them with sheep's wool, and we were cladding them with wool from the local sawmill. And then we moved all of our arena from our last place to our new place. Then we had to build a road. Then we had to find a way to generate power because we couldn't get an electricity source. So it would have cost 156,000 to connect to the grid. So we chose to go solar powered, which is a romantic idea in Scotland. I can 100% assure you.
Well, because you mentioned, we were chatting by text to arrange this, and you mentioned that. I've got so many questions, I almost don't know where to start.
I know, I'm fizzing with how'd you do that? What did you do that for? How'd you do that?
As long as I don't forget any of them, it doesn't really matter what order that they go in. Let's maybe do the solar panel first. But then I think it's crucially important to talk about the unbelievable value that you are bringing to other people through this and the power of horses to do that.
So when we first got solar, I don't know if anyone remembers, but years ago when COVID hit, the government was like, solar power, let's give everyone grants for solar power. When we got our system, what I know now, I can assure you I would never have done what I did then. So the people that were selling solar power then were not actually, they didn't really know about living off grid. So the system I was sold was not fit for purpose, but not really knowing so much because solar was quite new. We obviously listened to the experts, but actually the first year of having it, they'd fitted the exhaust in the incorrect place. They'd put the generator in the wrong place. They hadn't given us enough battery systems, so we could either have a cup of tea or we could turn on one small electric heater. So that went on for 2 years. So we couldn't. And then actually, when we had Storm Arwen, both of our sites were destroyed. And then the year after, when we had the floods, our sites were destroyed again. And we had no power for 4 months over Christmas last year. So it was literally a case of building a fire if you wanted a cup of tea.
Yes. Oh my God. And so meantime, you had 17 odd horses to take care of.
at that time.
To take care of. Yeah. And all of the volunteers.
And a hay shortage, which didn't help either.
Oh, yeah.
Huge hay shortage. We're having to get hay from Canada. So hay went up from £25 a bale to 55. So that was another difficult thing. Feed was difficult to get. And then obviously when Brexit came, like wood doubled by 50%, so did steel.
Yeah.
And then the influx of Brexit and European vets didn't help. So then all our medications went up, our riding school licenses went up, our recycling rates went up, our business rates went up, our insurance went up. And then we had the cost of living. So people then were not wanting to spend.
Yes. Yeah.
So we were stuck in this situation of our costs have risen by nearly 55%. And we're in a rural community where it's difficult to get support. So when we tried to get our first solar system, we asked 55 suppliers. We could only find 2 that would come to our location. When we got our fencing done, we had to use someone from the Highlands. There wasn't a company large enough to do the amount of fencing we needed. Most of our site is not being built by local businesses because they do not have, where we're based, there's more work in Newcastle and Edinburgh. So people tend to go where the work is, don't they?
Yes.
We've got tiny businesses. We've got a great sawmill. It's been brilliant for getting things from free cycle, small bits of feed. But anything on a large scale, I have to go out the locality.
Yes.
And I still to this day have to do that.
Shame. Yeah.
Because we just don't have enough opportunity. If you think about the Scottish borders, it's such an aged population. You know, a lot of people move out there from Edinburgh, they buy a nice house, and we don't have a lot of economic development for young people.
No, the people just want to have a nice life in a nice location.
So they leave. You know, young people tell me, well, we're either smart enough to leave or we stay here and we get pregnant. And that is the prevalence among the young people living in East Berwickshire. We don't have any bus. We don't have one supermarket in our locality. So when we were getting food vouchers at Christmas for families, we couldn't physically, we had to take them across the border to buy them food because the only shop we have is a co-op. And that's within a 40-mile radius, and we have not a single bus link to where I am. And we've got one doctor's surgery, we've got one dentist surgery. It's really tricky. And all of our councillors are landowners, which is part of our economic problem. You can keep that in. It's something I'm consistently. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge and it's a challenge as well because of how we see horses. So for me, I can go on about that. I suppose I'll tell you about the horses in a different thing because that's changed a lot for me over time. So obviously I was a stage 4 coach. I was training to a high level. But what I started to recognise I was working with people is we kind of look at horses as a kind of commodity. You know, people are like, oh, I want to sit on that horse or make it go faster or we'll go and have a beach ride. But actually, if you look at the legacy of the horse, there's never been a battle won in history without a footprint of a horse beside us. You know, we wouldn't have roads. We wouldn't be where we were without them. We wouldn't have built transport lines. So I think, you know, with a lot of things, like we're continuously learning from nature. So we think about solar power, we're taking it from the sun, wind, but we're not using biomimicry correctly in terms of what we can still learn from nature in terms of herd animals. So horses are herd animals. They've been around for millions of years, longer than us. And they're doing a pretty good job at it. Humans not so great. So horses share leadership. They have ever evolving roles. And they convene their young and they're vulnerable in times of movement. So when you look at COVID, we didn't do that. We had disabled people over there, old people over there, young people over there. You know, we sectioned people.
Yes, we basically did. Yeah.
Horses don't do that at all. So horses, their leaders are picked on capabilities that keep their herd safe. So all a horse wants to know when it's with you is, are you going to keep yourself safe? And people say to me all the time, when that horse is distracted, I say, that horse knows what's going on. We don't, because we don't place enough attention on ourselves, others in the environment. And horses are masters at that. So we started to look at how horses were bringing different things to people. So what was it people were really gaining out of these experiences? And that's what led to developing the site further. So over the last 2 years, we've increased our staff to 11. We've got 37 volunteers. We probably support around 170 beneficiaries a year. Wow. So that's ranging from really chronically neurodiverse, chronic health conditions, and drug and alcohol addiction, criminal stuff. So still a lot of the same groups, but we've become known as a bit of a platform for a safe space. So we hold regular consultations, regular wellness events, which are free and accessible to families. And we've built up lots of work programs. So youth awards are something we do quite a lot. So it's a way that young people can still gain credits. So the more youth awards they do, they lead their qualification and then they can get a certificate of higher education so they can still access college, even if they leave school with nothing.
Yes.
Biggest challenge we have with our colleges. So I'm based in Lamberton and I can't access Borders College because there's no funding for as far out as we are. So, and the young people can't get on a bus in time to get to Borders College for their first class.
You said at the very beginning about, I can't remember the phrase you used, but like the forgotten.
Yeah, the land that time forgot.
But it sounds like you're actually, you're kind of the land that everybody's.
That public administration
Yes,
forgot.
that everybody's ignoring.
Yeah.
That's
Hidden
just
poverty.
unbelievable.
Have you heard of Darren McGarvey, Loki? So I was on his TV show.
He's a rapper from Glasgow, right?
So I was on
a poverty campaigner.
Yeah, I was on his TV show. So he did a show in the Borders. So he was looking at stuff in Scotland that people don't know about. So the drug rise in Dundee, male deaths are more prominent in Glasgow. But actually what people don't realise in the Scottish Borders is that poverty is hidden. So you can be in a car park and think, oh, this is a lovely view, but there'll be people living in their cars. One of the guys that was on the series had lived in his car for 6 months. No one had noticed because they would come and they would take a picture.
Yes.
They would look.
Outwardly, it looks like an affluent area because it's got so much beauty and lovely houses and etc., etc. But as you say, it's what's hidden and what you don't see.
And actually, it's got the lowest wage in Scotland, the Scottish Borders, and has the highest youth unemployment for a county with the least youths. So if you were to look at the latest census,
Oh my goodness, that's an interesting statistic.
Highest, lowest
so the
household
least
wage
amount of
in
young
Scotland.
people,
the
but the
highest.
highest percentage of them are unemployed.
And the lowest wage in Scotland per capita, per family. People just don't know because you drive through it.
And and you see the wealth as you're driving through, but you don't see everything else.
You don't see what's inside at all. So that's kind of led us on to developing our programs, but also developing the site. So over the last 2 years, we have put in a butterfly garden. We have built, do you know about the tiny house movement?
A little, yes.
So this is a sort of kickback to social housing. So we have built a 2-story house on a trailer. So it's completely road legal.
Wow.
With its own shower, toilet, sink. It's got gas powered, solar powered, and its own little sewage treatment tank. So you can just drive off with it. It's got a mezzanine. Have a look at the tiny house movement. It's a bit like George Clark's Amazing Spaces.
Yes, yeah.
We've got 2 Mongolian yurts that we renovated. So they're still made out of horsehair.
Wow.
And we've decorated them with the young people. We've got a fire pit now and a campfire area. We've got a barbecue area, and our garden will be opening in 3 weeks' time. So we've put in a garden which has got I don't know if you've been to Jupiter Artland.
Yeah,
we were
I have,
actually talking about that earlier. I haven't, but you have, yeah.
We mentioned it in a past episode of the podcast that it's just an amazing space.
Yes.
Beautiful
Amazing.
spot.
Yes.
So we've kind of got, it's not as big, but we've got, you come into the garden and it twirls round. So the whole garden's wheelchair accessible, even though we're on a hill. So we paid the money to make sure wheelchairs could get around it because we are actually on the bottom of a slope.
Right.
And we've got a new allotment we've put in. So that's got raised beds for wheelchair access, and it's got cut out bits in the beds so people can actually in a wheelchair garden. And we've got ponds, and we've got a sensory garden, a seating area, a picnic area, and soon to be our own chickens coming on site, as well as 1,000 trees that we planted in the last year, and a nature walk. So we have 3 endangered birds living on site. We have skylarks, we have kestrels, and we have buzzards, linnets, house martins, swallows. So the kids have just put in their own nature walk. This is
When you say the kids, what do you mean?
Oh, my kids are amazing.
Your own kids or the kids that you volunteer with? Yeah.
So I've got one daughter in my life. I've got a goddaughter now. Her mum died at the start of COVID. So she was one of my best friends. So she's in my life 3 days a week now. And I absolutely adore her and just feel so blessed to have her. I don't have children myself. Sometimes I think my own past trauma, I'm not going to be a good parent. So that's probably something I'm still needing to work on.
Sounds like you're being an amazing parent to her.
Oh my God, yeah.
But no, I have about 19 young people. So everyone I employ is under 25. Everyone I employ has a recognised disability or a mental health condition. All of my subcontractors and all of my management team are subcontractors and they're older. But everyone that's on the ground face-to-face in are young, vulnerable beneficiaries. Because I love young people. It's what gets me out of bed every single day. But they are fantastic at raising money and making events. So, for example, last year they did an event called Be Yourself Day, my youth club. They invited all these adults. And one of the wee kids, had a mood mocktail stand and they were smaller than the cocktail shakers. And they were like, You look miserable, have some banana. So they had a mood mocktail stand. One little girl had a pride colouring. So there's 35 pride flags in the world, which I learned that day. So she was teaching people how to colour in pride flags for international flags.
You mean different types of pride flags?
Yeah.
There's not just there's more than 35, but different designs.
Designs, yeah.
Yes, didn't know that.
We learned that too that day. And then we had a young band. They were only 13. We had a young group of boys who sung for us all day. So they'd set up a band in COVID and hadn't told their parents. We had young girls taking parents and people off to do mindfulness exercise with horses and yoga. And one mum at the end of the event said to me, she just said, thank you, you've given me so much hope. Because we just give young people a platform. So I say, what is it you want to do? Let me give you this space and we'll support you.
Yeah.
So what it sounds to me like is that you are being the person that 13-year-old you needed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think about that? Do you ever think about how far you've come from 13-year-old you to where you are now and what you're able to offer as a result? I'm bowled over just listening to you.
So am I. I'm speechless. Yeah.
I think I find that quite hard. I think like as I've got older now, I think when you run a business, it's really lonely. And you help everybody. And I think part of my ADD, it means I help everyone before I help myself. And I think, last year I was really ill. I had pneumonia and I was in hospital. Mainly because of the amount of hours I work. Because I don't think for 2 years I turned my laptop off. I would go on holiday and have my laptop with me. Or I'd be at a party and I'd leave the party with my laptop. It'd be in my bag in a car. That's only really changed in the last 2 months. And when the business was really struggling last year, I didn't take a wage for 7 months. So there's been numerous times over Run and Eat Sleep Ride that I've had to forgo my own wages to make sure my 10 staff are paid.
Yes. And the animals are fed. And
the animals are fed.
So let's be blunt then. Like, where does all the money come from? How do you fundraise? I mean, that must be a huge amount of your job, must be not just organising the fundraising events, but filling out funding application forms. And that's presumably never ending.
We wouldn't survive without grants.
No.
But we have to, and this is why we started to develop the service more, because the reality is you just cannot make enough money out of horse riding unless you use your horses in a way where they work every hour and they're working every day. So I just can't do that to my horses. Like, they gave me every part of my life. It's the reason I'm alive today. So I can't do that to them. I can't. Sorry.
I would upset you. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
It's just showing how much I'm look at me. It just shows how much it all means to you and how it all goes back to horses.
But you've got them working in a way that doesn't involve going round and around an arena, because it's not it's not the riding that's
guys,
benefiting
breathe.
people. It's the being with them and what they can give
It's
back.
the being, I was on Robson Green's Great Escapes last year, and that'll be filmed next year. So he'd brought his uncle Matheson to ride a horse, and I remember the film crew arriving at 6 a.m. and they were mental, and I was like, look, I said, you lot need to calm down. This is before I put you near my horses. And I gave them all a mindfulness session with the horses, and they were all in tears at 7 a.m. and probably shouldn't have done that to them, but they all recognise in themselves that none of them just took the time to be. And I just said, we can't do this, until we can all find a way that we can connect with these animals, and we're going to use them, we're going to work with them in a way that they're sentinel and they're our partners. So when you look at my website, my horses are my team. They're not my horses. They are as sentinel as me and you. They have the same choice as me and you. So the way my horses work is if they don't come to the gate, they don't come in. If they don't want to work, they don't work. If they're lying down, they don't get up. I wouldn't wake someone out of their beds in the morning and force them to do a job. So the way it's kind of moved on with the horses, because we're a mental health charity as well, is when people come to ride one of my horses, they have to tack the horse up or do something with the horse. So we do Masterton techniques with them, equine touch, so it's hands-off energy work. Horses are really good at showing you where they need help. So they will show you where their pain is, because horses are really guarded. But if you take the time to listen, they'll always show you what they need. And so will humans, if you also take the time to pay attention. And that's what they teach us is, Imagine if you could pay attention to what someone else was looking at. Imagine how safe you would make that person feel. Imagine if you could keep watching the environment while someone was having a session with you, and how much they would then give up because they feel safe with you. So we use what horses teach us, and we do that in our sessions. So a session could range from, I've got a little girl who I teach who signs in 3 languages. She's got a learning difficulty and she's a dwarf. She now rides independently and we sign in 3 languages. I didn't know how to sign, but this little girl came to me and I went, tell me, because my horses are curious. So horses are always curious. They completely embrace confusion to find clarity. So when a young girl or a man, or it doesn't matter who comes to me, my job is to learn what they're learning, watch them, follow them, observe. What is it they're into so I can understand how to communicate with them? And that's something horses have taught me, is you can communicate with anyone. You do not need to speak. It's something we do because we're in our heads, but you don't need speech. You actually just need to figure out what the other person cares about. So like we've done a lot of things with young people who are non-verbal. So we've recognised they're into things like roadblocks. So we'll cut out cardboard cutouts of roadblocks, and we'll do foraging with the horses. I had a woman who came with early dementia, 42 years old. Her mum brought her. It was one of the saddest sessions I've ever done. And all we did was we used the grooming brushes on her arms and we filled up hay nets. And she started to remember her horses.
Filled up what, sorry?
Hay nets, because she smelt the smell. And she started to talk about her horses in front of her mum, and she remembered everything. It was such a sad session because our mum was in tears at the end of it. Another beautiful session I had was a lady with cancer. She's passed now. And she'd phoned me to say, I just want to have a session with horses. I said, well, what's the purpose? And she just went, I just want to be seen. This will get us really upset. And all she wanted to do,
you should have warned me that you wanted to be
she
seen.
just wanted to be seen as who she was and not a cancer patient. Mm-hmm. And she got out of the car, and that horse for 1 hour nuzzled every part of this woman's body. And I said, have you done now? And she went, that's enough. And she died 4 weeks later. But in that time, she was just seen. The horse didn't care. And that's all she wanted, was to be seen. So these are the beautiful moments I have every day with people. But
that doesn't take away from the fact that
we have to find funding all the time.
You must wake up every day thinking,
am I going to survive?
I want to get up because of the young people and the horses, but I've got so many challenges to face today and again tomorrow.
Every day.
And then most of it comes down to money, I imagine.
Yep. All of it comes down to money. So a couple of things we've changed is, so we've actually now just been given SCIO status. So SCIO is a Scottish Charitable Incorporated Organisation. Yes. Mm-hmm. So what that'll do is Eat, Sleep, Ride will stay as the charity. And it's almost like it'll wear a hat. So I'll be able to bring in separate revenue on top of the charity, which will make it more transparent what the charity funds. But I'll be able to accept donations on behalf of the charity.
Okay, yeah.
That won't be taxable. Because even if when I took out last year, we've raised just under £1 million to build this site.
Wow.
In 4 years. That's what it's cost me. And 268,000 of that is loans. And the rest of it was grants. So it's been a long time of writing business plans, pitching everywhere, going on every programme you can. But it's not sustainable. And every winter I get to the same point, and I think last year we nearly liquidated. We had £2,000 in the bank in March, and I managed to pull in 55 in that week. But it's not sustainable. So we have to look at...
It'll kill you, yeah.
We have to look at different ways. So the SCIO is exciting. The opening of the gardening is exciting. So what we're trying to do now is encourage people to come and use the space. So come and hire our event space. Mm-hmm. Come and have a day. And then it works for itself. So my staff aren't having to work as hard. My horses are just there as part of the picture.
Mm. So do you mean for, we're sitting here in St Andrew's Square in the middle of the city. So do you mean people from that office block coming for a team away day and hiring your space and using it for that kind of thing?
So there's like three folds. There's the using, because the whole site's accessible, so it's wheelchair accessible. So there's the thing that you could have an away day, so you could hire it for an event space. We've got a PA system, we've got a stage, so we've got all the technology we need. All that's all run off of solar to run an event. A networking day, Also, the next service we're launching, and my video will be released next week, is our Herd Dynamics Leadership Service. So over the last 3 years, I've also retrained as a trauma-informed practitioner. I'm a work-based assessor for indirect and direct competencies, so I can assess SVQs. I've done 2 qualifications in the principles of team leading, and I went to North Carolina last year. And I trained as a leadership coach. So I work for a company named Teaching Horse. And this is where the whole concept of bringing in herd dynamics to businesses. So it's about breaking down ranks into roles. Like, we live in a society of the man with the cigar approach. It's top down, top down, top down, top down, top down. But if we don't do something different now, there's not going to be a future for any of our young people. You know, climate change is going to happen at some point, even without us accelerating it. We understand that. Education's bad about what climate change is. I'm a volunteer leader for Save the Children. I think it's really misunderstood the way that we publicise what we can do. I think we have the chance with young people to break down roles into ranks. I think they have to understand that leadership can be shared and we can give powers back to communities. We can't run under one single approach. We have too many different facets of society now. We have too many different environmental factors, behaviours, attitudes, cultures. Mm-hmm. We have to figure out a way to bring small groups together. Yeah. And that's why business like ours.
Too many of the same types of people running the country.
Yep, all the time.
Not enough people like you.
And that needs to be broken down. So North America changed my life again. And I came back from North America, South Carolina. And I came back and I just said, okay, this is what I want to do with my horses now. And actually what we have been doing, so I've been training my young people to facilitate corporate days. They love it. They are my horse wranglers. So when I have a team building day, their job is to look after the horses. The clients must be safe at all times because I don't want the clients to have to learn horsemanship skills. The clients are there to learn about themselves.
Yes.
And it's not about how to lead a horse, not about how to hold it. It's not about that. But the young people help in the debrief, and because the young people see more. So we had a networking event 4 weeks ago, and we brought 28 businesses together, and we did an exercise where we split them all into groups, and we did an exercise called Tied. So we tied everyone together. Their only objective was to get across the line with those horses in alignment with them.
Sounds
you
easy.
think it sounds easy? It's really hard because you have to be so congruent with each other. So one thing humans are really bad at is congruency.
So who was tied to who?
So we call it tied. So we put everyone in a line and the horses were in between, and we had lead ropes attached, and we had 3 horses and we had 9 people in each group.
All attached in a line.
Yep.
Attached to the horses?
There were ropes attached to the horses, and then they were holding onto the ropes in between. So no one was allowed to break the ropes. And you think it's a simple exercise, but actually the horses are really good at telling you. And there was one team that went out, and I know my big horse Jock, he's a big Clydesdale, he's hilarious. And they're going, oh, Jock's really slow, you know, we've all got to get him going. Until one person eventually said halfway through exercise, do you think we should maybe listen to Jock? Because I don't think he can walk as fast as us. And in that moment, the whole energy shifted, and every single one of them walked over the line together because they just noticed. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if you noticed in your team, rather than going, oh, that person's a bit lazy or they don't catch up, did anyone ever notice to ask that person, how are you doing? Are you able to cope with the pace that we're going at?
Yes, yeah.
Jock's really good at telling people.
What can we do for you to make it easier for you?
Yeah, rather than just, oh, we need to all get over here. Come on, we've got a deadline. Let's do it.
Crack on.
Yeah.
But actually this person, and it's something I learned in my trauma training as well, is I hear so many times, oh, that person's always a bit of a goody two-shoes, or, you know, things like this. And I'll hear these challenges in the workplace and we're talking, but that person's responded in a way which is fawning. And you don't really know what's going on in someone else's life because we don't pay enough attention to that, do we? And we don't take enough accountability for ourselves. It's too easy to pass the buck. And congruency, I always think, do you ever remember that time you were a child and, you know, you went into a room and your parents had maybe had an argument and they said to you, oh, I'm fine. And you were like, no, you're not.
And I'm not daft.
Yeah. But there's your path to incongruency. And then you go to school. And then you're taught to do something to pay your council tax. Because let's face it, in school, we're not really teaching people things that they're using in life. We're saying to them at 15, what do you want to do? How would you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are we not pushing people to go traveling, to learn different cultures, to take opportunities, to seize life? We're just pushing people to consistently pay taxes in a society where leadership is not shared. And I truly believe in the power of biomimicry. I truly believe, so biomimicry is learning from nature. We have so much to learn from nature, and horses are a great start. And that's what we're trying to push now. So this is a way that we can make change culturally. This is a way that we can empower young people to be in conversations with people who are doing good things. You know, actually letting young people speak to CEOs, letting young people speak to businesses, like letting them see a different entrepreneurial side of life.
Yes.
And they can come still be with horses. So I'm not saying to someone you got to come on the site, but like most of my staff don't ride. Only 3 of them do.
Wow. Yeah.
It's quite amazing, actually. Like, I've got one boy who I employed on a no one left behind agreement 6 years ago, and he's still with me now. He's got a young boy, so he works part time. I've got two young staff members who are young parents, single parents, and that's why we're really accessible in the way we go through work. So they can only work 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Because of childcare.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that works full time. And grant writing.
And some.
Yeah, I think it's what's the word for beyond full time?
And some.
Extra time.
This year's been, I mean, there has been a change this year. Like I have actually been, like Social Investment Scotland, or probably the first time that someone's noticed that I could probably do with a little bit of my own coaching help. So I've been getting some coaching sessions, which has been really beneficial to me.
Yeah.
And I've been going back to the doctors because, I mean, a lot of the time when I am struggling with the business, you know, it's difficult with my ADHD. I'm so overwhelmed. And I understand, like, if we're going to delve into it and psychoanalyze me, you know, things that have happened in my life, you know, do provide a trauma response. And then added with ADHD, it's sometimes really difficult for me to manage. So, you know, things like I'll struggle to lock my door because I lose keys all the time. So, you know, as I've got older, I've started to recognize some of my traits. And it started to make me go back and say to actual medical professionals, like, a lot of the time I'm doing things that probably don't keep me safe personally. My business will always be fine.
Yes.
Because that's what I try. But actually for me, when I get home, am I thinking, so I live in a council house in Haddington. So when I started Eat, Sleep, Ride, that's another thing, I was in a homeless hostel again. So I left my homeless hostel at 16 and thought, I'll never have to go back to one of those things. And when I came back from down south, I got into a really tricky relationship. Kind of old patterns picked up. And I put myself in a hostel. So Eat, Sleep, Ride began from a homeless hostel.
Tell us about the RBS Accelerator then. How did you find out about it and why did you sign up? And has it benefited you? You know, you're talking about you need to look after yourself, and that's not just in terms of your mental health, but it's also in terms of your constantly developing skills and resilience. And tell us about that process.
I think, like, so when I look at people who have horses or rural businesses or farms, I remember doing this huge survey last year, and it was trying to understand what people in towns thought of farming. And the results were staggering. Like, literally, they were like, oh, they work with cows and sheep. Like, nobody knew what farming was. But then, interestingly, the farming side of people, they didn't like the townspeople. So it's absolutely mad that I'm in a locality of agriculture, but my farmers don't speak to the townspeople. I find it bonkers, and they still don't.
Yeah.
It's
that's sadly quite...
It's quite normal, isn't it?
Not everybody. It's not everybody, but it's quite universal. Yeah.
And, you know, people just don't understand at all. So the problem with people with horses is it's either a love. So, you know, their parents have had a farm, they've been given a farm, so, like, they do it and it's a way of life. We're not that great at writing business plans. Like, I never worked for a horse riding school at writing a business plan.
No.
Until
and
I
farmers are the same.
Like, literally, like business plans, like networking, because we're always so busy with our horses. We're always doing things. And it's like, but this is ridiculous. Like, we're not really empowering these young people, and our industry's not great. Horse riding, the equine industry is terrible for wages, hours of pay. Yeah. There's a huge kick just now with the national minimum wage. Like, it's awful the way people are treated, because people expect you to do it because you love horses. And I know when I was working down south, I mean, I'd get £60 a week, and I'd probably work 83 hours a week because I was also working in the Conservative Club and the Labour Club and another pub at night, just so I could fund. So I was only getting £50 a week from my job.
You worked in the Conservative Club and the Labour Club?
Yeah.
So just hedging your bets.
They were the ones that would pay.
If there was a Liberal Democrat club and an SNP club, you'd have worked there too.
I don't like nationalist parties, so
Okay. Probably cut that out.
I don't like any of them either. But I'm definitely not into any sort of
Neither do I.
nationalist
Got
parties.
that out as well.
But I think I learned
Like you said before, you only see the glamorous side, the white jodhpurs and the Diamante brow bands.
Of course
and
you
stuff.
do. That's what we promote all the time. And I would say that our governing bodies are not really great at promoting what we do very well either. It's always grassroots sports. So, well, it's always, people riding. And actually, I think every single person with a horse, because actually, if you read the latest beta survey, it says something like 43% of the public do not want to see horses ridden anymore. A lot of that's come through racing. The meat trade.
Well, what was the thing that happened at the Olympics? The
Charlotte Desjardins stuff.
Charlotte Desjardins getting in trouble for what was she like? Basically whipping the horse excessively, right?
And the pentathlon. What was it?
Oh,
that was awful.
One of the last Olympics, one of the foreign modern pentathletes was,
which has now been banned because it was so awful.
they didn't run it.
They can't run it because none of these people could ride, and they were asking them to jump these huge fences on horses, and it was just a disaster. So we have really destroyed our industry, and especially over COVID. Again, we go back to the government. We're just like, oh, well, you can just teach riding lessons in our fields, because no one's ever bothered to explain it to anyone properly what actually the industry involves. So after I'd done the School for Social Entrepreneurs, I'd done the Big Issue Invest programme, I'd been part of First Port. I really recognised that what I enjoyed was speaking to people who wanted to make a difference in the world. So communities, businesses. I believe in small business. I believe in the power of our own economy and ourselves and our own value. And I think that's something that we can all bring together. And I heard about the RBS because I was at an Edge event, actually. So, you go to the Scottish Edge and then you go to these dinners.
Yeah.
I'd met Mandy, actually. She was at one of these dinners.
Yeah.
Do you know, like trying to recruit people?
Yes.
Like
Mandy's one of the ladies that runs the RBS Accelerator.
Yeah. And she sat chatting to me and she said, oh, there's this program. And I remember I was with my friend Morgan who'd come to this dinner, and I was like, oh, I should maybe check that out. So I applied. And I've been on a lot of programs. I'm on the Eden Community Project just now. I've been on so many different sort of School for Social Entrepreneurs, Big Issue, First Port, Scottish Edge. What I will say about all of them is that when you're up there winning, there's a lot of support. But what I will say is the cohort that's built after it's not been anything like this. This is completely different. In terms of the ongoing support, the fact you can still stay on, the fact that I now get a day away from my house where I don't have to sit in front of my sofa and work. I get a day with an office where I see people.
Yes.
Like I'd never had that before. I'd always been having to work in my house at night. It's like 1, 2 in the morning, or I'd been having to, sit at the stables. So this was like an eye opener for me. I was like, I get to use this space. And that's what's brought to me. And then the network.
Yeah.
So the chance of being able to do this today, I wouldn't have had that if I didn't wasn't part of the RBS, would I?
No, exactly.
I wouldn't be playing badminton on a Monday. I play badminton on a Monday now. Like that's and I love sports. It's like something I'm doing.
So this is a well-being thing then as well for you. You're playing badminton on a Monday is not going to have a direct impact on the finances of your business, but it's a well-being thing. So actually that's another angle, and it's not just about the finance or funding or business structure. It's about supporting the people who are.
Well, it's about making you sustainable, and making your business sustainable. Because one thing that I've been, I largely sit and listen to these chats, and one of the things that I've noticed is that through all of the things that you've overcome and the hurdles that you've not gone over, you've gone through them. Doing something else doesn't ever seem to have been an option for you. Just going, actually, this is too hard, I'm not going to do this, doesn't ever seem to have been an option. So you were going to do this or not. You were always going to do this. It's just about getting you to a point where you can do it without bloody killing yourself in the process.
Yes.
And I don't say that lightly.
No, you're right. It's completely and utterly there's no. And I think that's why we had to get a site, because we were never going to make enough money renting. 2, we had to look at, okay, how can we, like, so putting in the garden, so now we're a public community, putting in the growing space, now we can grow our own veg, putting in the chickens, now we've got our own eggs, putting in the yurts, now we've got accommodation, putting in the campfire, now we've got an event space, building up the leadership service. So I've got 15 coaches that work for me now. That's taken 2 years to build up, but I've got 15 corporate coaches now. So anytime I hold an engagement, I now have a bank of wellbeing coaches and professional coaches that I can just pull in. So I don't have to do their CPD. I don't have to, we just have to work together. They're all professionals in their own right.
Yeah.
And we're only launching the service this year because it's taken me all year to get the coaches to write the pitch decks. But I'm feeling better about the future because I'm feeling like I've got a clear focus. The yard's running itself. I know I'm never going to overwork my horses. I know I'm never going to make enough money at my horses commercially. I just can't. I physically, I mean, I have to say sorry to them when I do a beginner's lesson. I still do today. I ask them, I go in every time and say thank you. And they know me, you know, my horses when they come to the gate. And we do a lot of our riding with our horses without tack, which is really not the Scene thing to do in equestrianism. Like we don't.
Well,
we
because of the health and safety.
I'm sure
police,
there's some of
I
that.
suppose.
We're all just a bit mad, I think. But we just ride them with ropes around their necks. Because it's freedom. You know, people don't want to give away freedom. People always say to me, well, it goes a little bit fast. I'm like, but it's a partnership and it's a prey animal. So that's what they do. But that's something in us when we don't want to relinquish that.
Yes.
When we don't want to relinquish control.
Yeah.
And horses give us that opportunity to share that thought. It's not a domineering part of what we do.
Yeah.
You know, people always say there's a leader. Well, no, there's many leaders. And every one of us has a point to play in our lives.
There's leaders insofar as it's support and encouragement and partnership rather
and
than
diversity,
dictation.
Yeah. And diversity is the precursor to unity. You know, I always say we can't be united if we can't be diverse. And, you know, reflection is the precursor to agility.
And respecting that diversity.
100%. And that comes with your reflection before agility. You know, if we don't stop and think, we shouldn't be moving.
I've got 5 horses.
Oh, wow.
You've really made me think.
What do they teach you?
Well, I don't think they teach me enough because I don't think I listen
enough.
It's really
beautiful.
It's
beautiful that you recognise that.
Yeah. I think they have a nice life. I think they have a lovely life. But I think to a degree we expect too much of them. You know, I've got 2 daughters. They go to pony club. They like to win rosettes. And I'm trying to teach them that if they don't win a rosette because their pony, last weekend, for example, because their pony wasn't fast enough, it's because the pony's trying to tell them something that today was not her day. She did not want to go fast today, and I don't want you to use artificial aids to try and make that happen. But actually, I don't think I'm teaching them that.
I think it's
as
difficult
much
as a mother,
or as well as I should.
I think as a mother, that's really difficult. I do think. Can I ask you a question then? You know,
yes.
So if I have a question, I will always go to my herd. Do you ever go to your herd when you want to know what you really feel about something inside?
I used to more often. When it was me, my horse was my sounding board and my silent advice. Now I do find that, and it's not an excuse, and if it was, it would be a terrible one. Now I find I don't have time because time is so tight that I'm functioning and doing practical things. So I'm poo picking or I'm arranging the farrier or whatever, and I'm not.
But do you ever notice when you're in the
with
field
them.
how they move?
Yes.
Do you recognise the diamond shape they form in movement?
No.
That's a bit of homework for you.
Yes.
Because it'd be watch how they interchange roles. So, you know, horses can interchange, and this is why they form a diamond shape, because they've an unspoken word. So each leader can take up a different role and change direction if they need to keep each other safe. Study your herds when you're poo picking.
Yeah.
Best time.
I spend a lot of time doing that, so I've got a lot of time to...
But you know, when I had a challenge once with an employee who really I shouldn't have employed in the position that I did. And I went to my horses that day, and that day I recognised that I had to say something. because the horses wouldn't follow me because I wasn't being truthful until I spoke my truth. And the truth was that woman, that person had to be taken from that position and put into a different position. So it's these questions, because the horses recognise what's inside of me internally. So they recognise that I wasn't sure. And I was kind of had this facade. Anytime I have a question, I go to my herd. I never go to a person first, because I want them to show me what my internal conversation is. And then I can work out what I'm going to do from there.
It's amazing.
But you can do that too.
Yeah. Everybody can if they just listen and look. Yeah. And is this all self-taught then? Is there anybody who you've gone to in terms of reading a book or listening to podcasts or?
Listening Montgomery was one of my, I always remember when I was little, and when I was chucked out of school, and I'd go to this woman called Liston Montgomery. She's dead now. I always remember when I remember the first day I tried to eat something on the yard, and she's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, This is the horse's living room. Go and eat in the kitchen." And she would have a go at you. If you were stood still, she'd be like, "You're stealing from me. I'd be stealing her time." So I learned that I wasn't, when I was with the horses, I worked and I paid attention. And if I wasn't, I did all those things in a room away from them. And I never, ever, ever behaved like that when I was with them. She wouldn't let me.
Wow.
She was my first person, and she was really into like zoology and aromatherapy. So I learned lots about self-medicating. Did you do any aromatherapy with your horses?
No.
Oh my God, it's amazing. They tell you what they want. Rose is the best one because they always lie down. Yarrow is normally trauma. And then she got me into a journey of Masterton, physio. So then I started, I don't know if you ever read The Tao of Equus?
No.
So it's about a lady whose dreams of horses came to her. You should read that book. It'll change your life and how you look at your horses.
Wow.
So that was another person. And then teaching horse, really, June Gunther, North Carolina. That's again what changed my other looking at horses. Everyone that I've followed, and Philippe Carrel, I trained with him. He's the French carte noir.
Oh yeah.
So I did a year's training with him. So that's riding horses from the bridle and in hand. So I've had a really amazing lot of training, but it's because I've really taken myself to different levels with my horses. Yeah. All the time trying to understand. So for someone that's, left school with nothing, I suppose now I've got an undergrad, I'm an accredited coach,
I think you're an assessment. Astounding, to be honest. Like, I don't have words for it, and I'm supposed to be the person that has words for everything.
No,
no, I genuinely do. And this is like so cliche, and I can't believe I'm going to say it. Maybe it shouldn't be in the podcast, but I'm on the pony club committee, that sort of thing. But the first thing that that everybody on that committee should do is listen to you. And then I think that we should arrange some sort of visit, because
I did something Milanic Riding Club. They were really interested.
Were they?
So I did a day.
Every parent and child in that pony club, it is like the cliche, the tweed wearing.
You don't want all them turning up, do you?
But they, so many of them just could learn so much, because it's about just thought and taking a step back. Why do we have horses? And
exactly. And mums, I work with so many parents. We had a therapy service for 2 years, and it was for underprivileged. So everyone that we worked with had to be over 16, so it was funded. We were working with people who were CEOs that could afford therapy. It wasn't that they couldn't. So people would come to me and say, "I've got a problem with my child," and I would say, "All right, well, there's probably something that I need to work with you on."
Yes,
because I'm like, we can't work with your child if your behaviours aren't going to change at home. And we worked with mums and dads. We worked with couples who had therapy. We had mums and dads coming in for therapy. We had men that had never spoken to anyone in their life. And then they started asking for separate sessions. And our feedback was, actually, we didn't realise therapy was available to us. We thought we had to have a problem. So we've got this thing in Britain where we're like, oh my God, we go and get help when we're in an acute sense of, do you know what I mean? Like,
it's my
we've got to be in a crisis.
Yeah.
But actually, these sessions for parents, and these were parents with good jobs, good houses. These were not people that were underprivileged, because it wasn't, the therapy service didn't mean you had to be poor. It just meant if you were struggling, let us provide you with some preventive alternatives. Yeah. And whether that was a 10-minute walk in the garden, just practicing noticing at 3 levels. That was one exercise we did. Whether it was, bringing mums and dads together because there was challenges about how they thought about they were raising their children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe something would come out with men that, things had happened in their life. And they were like, actually, now I want to explore that. But because we gave them a safe space and because the way we did it was we had a woman who worked 2 days a week and you could text her. So you never had to wait. It wasn't a waiting list. We would fit you in.
Wow.
And we would look after your kids if you couldn't get childcare. So they would come and play in our adventure spaces. Because we built a therapy room for that specialist. So we also have a therapy room as well and a coaching room.
Oh my goodness.
With sensory lights. And its own disabled toilet, so everything's disabled access.
I think we need a visit. We need an on-farm
visit.
I've been thinking that all morning, actually, that we've been having this conversation.
Used to come.
Yeah.
So, and we go to Lucky House. Lucky House.
Yes.
We're down there. Lucky House is a respite centre for cancer and MS. But the ponies are so good now. We get there, and they just bugger off with the ponies. We went last week, and I was like, "Where are you off?" And my horses, and they're all in their wheelchairs. Running about.
Yeah.
Like, I just sit and have cups of tea now. And the women, they're like...
Just let them get on with it.
Aye. Yes. They're like wacky races around the grounds. It's amazing. So we get asked 3 times a year. But I'd love to break into... I do the ABRS. I am ABRS approved. And I am a BHS APC. I just don't...
I don't know much about horses. Those are just letters to me. You need to explain some of that.
Accredited professional coach. So I've got my stage 4. You'll know what that is. And I'm on the coaching register. So that is. There's only one more level and then I'd be a fellow. But I wouldn't go down that route because I'm not in enough for the British Horse Society. Because again, I don't believe in gadgets on my horses. I don't believe in putting things on a horse to make it conform. I just can't. My brain just can't get. I think and because I worked with Sue Dyson, who I don't know if you must have heard of the Ethograms. Have a look at her. So I'm like a last chance saloon.
I'm not writing this down, so I'm going to have to get the audio for the books to read.
Sue Dyson would be good for you if you wanted, because Sue Dyson Ethograms are looking at horses in all different paces on the flat knowledge, and I only ride my horses in solution saddles, so they're $2.5 saddles, but you can feel everything. So the difference with a treed saddle is that they basically were designed for the comfort of the rider. They were never really designed for the comfort of the horse. Because if you're to have a treed saddle, you should be getting it checked 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And who does that?
Like once, usually. Yeah.
And we get our horses our bits. We have a bridle fiddle that comes to look at their tongues and their teeth, so I can tell.
Yeah.
So we're so holistic. We do barefoot trimming courses as well. We had a 2-day course. Yeah, we had the woman, she brought down a load of legs and there were so many dead legs in my yurt. She's like, I've just brought the legs down the night before. We must have had about 13 legs. I was oh my goodness, to let the children see them. And we've got our Halloween event coming up. We should bring the kids to it.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm gonna
look on our Facebook. I love Halloween. The kids are like, what are you going to do to us this year? Cool. I had people jumping out of coffins last year when they were trying to jump over jumps. I'm hilarious.
Oh, mate, you have been amazing. Thank you. I wish we could talk for another
hour. No, it's all right.
Well, actually, I have 2 more questions that I'd really like to ask you. First is, can you tell us about the first horse that changed your life?
Oh God. Let's think about it.
We might.
No, I can. I mean, I'm going to tell you about my horse I have now. So it's not when I was younger. So I've never owned a horse and I still don't. Eight Sleep Ride owns all the horses, but Ace is mine. So Ace has the Ace of Spades on her bum. And a woman put an advert up in Isle of Bute. And this woman said, no one wants to break this horse in. She's a bit mad. So she'd asked for interviews to come over. So I turned up on this boat and I went to see this beautiful brown and white horse and tried to go near her and she tried to kick me in the head. And I said, I want that horse. So I left there and I didn't think I would get the horse because there was like 15 people going over to the Isle of Bute. And I get a phone call a week later and she said, Ace is yours. I said, is she? Really? Is this going to be my first horse? And she sent her over in a trailer and this horse had never been on a trailer. So when it arrived at my Philippe Carroll's trainer's yard, this horse came off the trailer and honest to God, I was like, what have I just done? Couldn't catch her for 6 weeks. She'd never been in a trailer. First time we put her in a stable, she jumped straight out of it, so we had to leave her. It took me, the first time I tried to get on her, she threw me over a barbed wire fence. So I had to sit and read a book to her for 11 days by the mountain block. And then when I finally got on her, she wouldn't let me off. So then she would try and kick me if I tried to get off of her. So we went through that for 3 months. So when I was on, I was on. I was staying on until I could find a safe place to jump off. But the reason the Ace means so much to me is so Ace you cannot enter Ace's stable if you are not true to who you are. And I mean, you can't. She will have you. So I know when the girls are stressed out because they'll not go into her stable, Ace needs you you need to go to her and you need to be honest about who you are that day. Whether that's you're upset, you're angry, you're grumpy, but she will not let you near her unless you are completely true to yourself. And I don't think there's ever been a horse in my life that sees me. Like, she sees every part of me. She hears me when I walk in. She sees everything about me. I just never felt so seen, I suppose. And I've never had a horse that... I remember when we first started going to competitions, I got asked to leave so many times because she would go into the ring and she didn't like judges, so she'd try and box them with her front leg. She was a bit nuts. She was absolutely insane for 3 years. It was like a roller coaster ride of being constantly deposited up and down the country.
Oh my goodness!
But we've come through that together. And actually 2 years ago, she fractured the suture lines on her face. She had a fall in the field. She looked like a gargoyle, and I never thought I'd be able to do anything with her again. So we started doing endurance, and we did our first 24K in 2 hours. So it's something we compete at quite regularly. But she sees me. She sees everything I am. She sees all the horrible bits, all the sad bits. I never have to pretend in front of Ace. And I don't think you can get that from anything else. Ever.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With my history, yeah.
Yeah, so powerful.
Well, I guess you just mentioned history, and I guess I had one last question to finish up, and it might finish us all up.
No.
What would you say to 13-year-old you if you could now? What do you think she would say is maybe a better question if she could see you now?
I think now, I recognise looking back at Eat, Sleep, Rides, that I had a massive vision, but I also recognise that I didn't have the acumen at the start of it. I had a drive, I had ambition, I would get up every day, but I recognised that I did have a bit of a chip on my shoulder, really. I was a bit like, I'm a bit sort of loud, I'm a bit like Marmite, I felt like I didn't, when I first came to the hub, I remember sitting outside crying because I was so nervous to walk in here.
When you say the hub, you mean this RBS accelerator?
RBS. I sat outside crying on the steps because I always feel like an imposter. Still to this day, like I always, when I go to these business events, like Pony Club, I hate these type of things. Sorry, like I feel like an absolute imposter all the time, and I think because like things that I've done in my life, I worry people would find out about some of the things I've done or some of the things I had to do to survive. So that makes me feel like I'm not part of like society. So I suppose the only time I feel, but I suppose if I was to say that back to myself now is you are who you are. And as long as you value those things inside of you, I just believe that you should be nice to everyone and everyone should have a chance. But I think when I was that age, I was so hit up on what I thought people thought of me that I kind of maybe not played up to that, but thought that's who I am, I'm not going to make it. But actually, I think you can always make it, but it is finding your herd, isn't it? And I think the one thing the horses have taught me is we're all deserving of something, aren't we? But we have to deserve it. We have to like ourselves enough. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying I'm completely there yet, but I'm definitely on a better journey now of liking who I am. It takes a long time. But I think you just have to look for your strengths and those moments with people that they recognise who you are. And if I could go, that's what I say to all my young girls. I say to all of them, any opportunity that comes, take it. Don't shy away from opportunity. Embrace everything because you never know who you're going to meet. And my best friends, so I've got I didn't have Christmases for years. My best friends, I met her at the stables, and why she started hanging out with me, so I was like this little chav from Wester Hales, like fighting and getting chucked out of school, and she was a teacher, but she just saw something in me, and she's from Edinburgh, so all my friends have been to uni, they're all quite well to do. I'm like the little young one out the lot of them, but she saw something in me. This girl Lucille, she's my best friend, she's my mum, my social worker, my auntie. I think sometimes she despairs. because it's been a long friendship, and sometimes she's like, Danny, but she's my life, really. And I'm lucky. Like, I find Lucy in horses, and so many young girls I find in boys, they haven't found that thing. So if I can just give them one thing that makes them feel good about themselves, it's enough to grow.
Yeah, and for you it's horses, and for somebody else it might be something else, but it's just finding that thing and working with it. What an episode of the On Farm podcast this has been.
It's been a few months since we've cried.
All of us here crying.
I'm not sure if you've cried at all yet, have you, till today? I cry relatively easily, but it's been a while.
Thank you.
Danny, thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. You guys are great. You make people feel really comfortable.
Good. Well, that's the plan. And I want more people to listen to this so that they can understand themselves and their horses, and hopefully so that they can
throw money at Danny.
Yeah, exactly. Raise
as
much awareness. Yes. Tell us.
We have a donate link on our website, which goes directly towards the care of our rescue horses. So the other thing I want to say is all my horses are rescues.
Wow.
So I'm a sucker for anything unfortunate. Throw it in my way and I'll pick it up.
So what is the link? You can be explicit. Tell us the link.
It's on the website.
Well, we'll put it on the show notes so that
Yes.
Anybody who's new to podcasts, there's always a written description in your podcast player, sometimes called the show notes, and we'll make sure that the link to that and to Danny's organisation are there in the show notes. You'll be able just to click straight through.
There you have it. That was an emotional one, but incredibly inspiring. What an absolutely amazing lady she is, and what an amazing charity she's operating there and helping so many people. Just brilliant. As you know, this podcast is brought to you by Scene&HerdPR and Marketing. We build brands, we build websites, we do a host of other things. So head on over to our website to find out more about what we do. It's www.scene, as in scenery, and herd, as in a herd of cattle, pr.co.uk. So that's sceneandherdpr.co.uk, and find out more about us. As far as the podcast is concerned, we're going to take a semi-break in that we're going to become a little bit less frequent. We're going to go to once a month just for a little while, because without Monty it's a lot of work and also a lot of cost to put a podcast out every single week. So do keep listening. This episode and many others is sponsored by Gillespie McAndrew, Scottish law firm. So as always, we are enormously grateful to them. They sponsor this. They've done episodes about succession planning, women in agriculture, various other things. So please do go back through the back catalogue. We've got 200 past episodes to listen to. So whilst we're taking a semi-break, there's plenty there to keep you busy. If you have already listened to every single episode, please do get in touch with us on Instagram or Twitter and let us know, because I'm dying to send you a thank you gift if you've listened to every single episode that On Farm has produced, because that is loyalty and dedication and we really appreciate it. So we're not disappearing, but just a little bit more infrequent, and we'll be back again regularly soon.